Hey, how's it going? So my name is Rob Whitworth. I'm a filmmaker from the UK. How's it going? Sorry, let's start again. My name is Rob Whitworth. I'm a filmmaker from the UK. And my work has become known for a particular style, which I call Flowmotion. And over the course of the next 30 minutes, what I'd like to do is share some insights with you behind the style. Above all, in the hope that I can help you in finding your own style as a filmmaker, as a photographer, as a creative. Because I believe finding this is key to recognition for anybody with creative ambition today. Spectacular has become the norm. Talent is everywhere, and brilliance is easily replicated. What counts is the particular, the unique qualities that mark your work out as yours and no one else's.
One of the greatest changes in recent times has come from a single invention made less than 140 years ago. Electric light. It has become more and more powerful, filling our streets with light. It's everywhere in the city. It even goes underground. The difference between day and night is becoming less and less perceptible.
Okay, so that was a clip from the incredible Planet Earth 2, the final episode, Cities, estimated to have reached a global audience in excess of 600 million people. The work of the BBC Natural History Unit is considered the gold standard of nature filmmaking, and it's something of a childhood dream fulfilled, hearing the voice of Sir David Attenborough, kind of akin to royalty in the UK, narrating over your work. Quite an incredible commission. So, I like to describe Flowmotion as a way of seeing the world through a photographer's eye, but with a filmmaker's freedom. And to see what that can mean, let's start with a photo. So this is an amazing image. This is a view of Dubai, the world's tallest building here, Burj Khalifa. What an amazing view. But the problem is, I'm not the first person to take this shot. I mean, many hundreds, if not thousands, of photographers have stood on this particular rooftop and had this scene. And it's kind of an issue that I think a lot of photographers face, is how do we add value in the face of images being, the locations being so heavily photographed? There's a few things we can do. I mean, first thing is blue hour. You pick your time when you film. And cities look great at blue hour. It's this magical time when the sky fades and the luminosity matches the street lights. So you get the lovely interplay between the blue of the sky and the orange of the street lights. It's a magical time to photograph. Or we can photograph at sunrise, or look where the sun's going to be in the scene, because that makes it a bit more interesting. And then we can play to our environment with time-lapse. We can film shadows moving. But we're still with a wide scene here, and there's a lot more going on in this scene. So I like to see it as I'm building a world around this scene. So let's take in a detail, one of the stories unfolding in front of us, and then what was it like to see Dubai being built? That would have been an amazing thing to witness. And then they have the cool fireworks at New Year's. I mean, let's check them out. And then once again, we're at a wide scene, so let's check out a detail. I mean, what's it like for the people watching the fireworks? I mean, look, there's a motorway there that's at a standstill watching the fireworks, and everyone leaves. So I call my work Flowmotion, and the idea behind it is the single take. So instead of lots of jump cuts between lots of different scenes, in Flowmotion we turn the camera into a character that sort of roams around and explores those scenes. Something of a visual roller coaster ride. Crucially, it's not time linear, so we might have moments where years pass by in seconds, or we might have some very slow motion, intimate moments. Like all things, it's a style that's constantly developing, but there's some visual consistencies that make it recognizably mine. From Dubai to Cappadocia. Okay, that was a super short clip from Once Upon a Time in Cappadocia. Cappadocia's in Turkey. It's an amazing place, and I urge everyone to go. So there are can appear to be like a very kind of spontaneous feel to the film. So that's what I aim for, is if the camera's sort of floating freely and untethered through space, almost like we could join any character and then follow their story for a bit and pull out. But like a lot of things that appear this way, is it kind of belies a very rigid structure. And that breaks down into 4 parts in making the scene. This is applicable to photography and filmmaking and lots of things. And I want to explore the process of creating one of these projects. So let's look at a project that I filmed at the end of 2017. This was for BBC Scotland. This was a countdown sequence to New Year's. They have a really big celebration there called Hogmanay. And it was going to be a 40-second sequence leading to New Year's, touring Scotland as we passed numbers along the way. Pretty interesting commission. Now, this stage is all about curation. There's always, in yourself and with the client, a lot of expectation on the amount of content you can feature in a relatively short space of time. And I like to say that each one of these dots here, each location, each product, each talent, each story you want to tell needs about 5 seconds to do it justice. And we've got about 20 dots here, so that's 100 seconds content, and that's not going to work in 40 seconds. So we've got to curate. We've got to find the best things. And I think the key to this is the unglamorous part. It's the research before you even pick up a camera. The more research you can do before you even leave your desk or your office, the better, and you can get rid of some of these dots right from the get-go. Then we do recon. We actually go to the locations. We stand in the 360, and we start to think how we can connect the dots, how we can make a story. And after you've completed recon, you find yourself here, the blank page. Now, this is a terrifying space. What this blank page needs to become is your storyboard. And a storyboard is a blueprint that you need to deliver to the client to excite them and to excite yourself. But it also needs to be logistically possible. It needs to be something you can realize and deliver to a deadline. And when I started out, what I'd do is I'd have like an idea in my head, and then lo and behold, I'd spend a week shooting that idea and a week maybe in post-production. And at the end of these weeks and weeks of work, I'd realize I only spent about 5 or 10 minutes thinking up the idea, which seems pretty crazy. And the reason why is it's really uncomfortable being here, letting ideas come and letting them go, because the idea you cling on to will be the idea that you do. And the longer you stay in this space, the better the outcome, undoubtedly. And truth be told, I've never spent enough time here. But when you're happy and you're confident, you've got your best ideas, you put pen to paper or hand to mouse, and you come up with a storyboard. So what I want to do now is for you guys to take on the role of client and to be nice. And what I'm going to do is present the storyboard as I did to the client for this actual project. And I just want to manage expectations here. I can't draw. That's why I'm a photographer, so my storyboard isn't lots of intricate drawings. It's some recon images and some existing stock imagery, as we'll see. But anyway, here we go. We're going to start at this location, Dunottar Castle, and we're going to fly over the castle out to sea, where we join a fishing boat. We're going to follow that fishing boat into Peterhead Harbour, where we follow its catch being unloaded and dragged into Peterhead Fish Market, where we'll encounter our first number here on the wide shot. It's been number 30 as we're counting down to New Year's. We'll then zoom in to a tray of fish that have just been sold, and we'll transition on to another fish in slightly happier circumstance. And we're going to emerge above the water to this place, which is Finnick Glen. It's this amazing gorge near Glasgow, incredible location. And we'll pull up out of the gorge to this view of Kelvingrove Museum, where we start to zoom in past the number 20, counting down to New Year's. We'll hurtle, hyperlapse through the museum, along a corridor, and at the end of this corridor, in the picture, we're going to have a picture of this, the Queen's Ferry Crossing, newly completed in 2017. And much like this sequence here from a previous video, we're going to zoom through the bridge towards Edinburgh, not San Francisco. And we're going to hurtle over the Edinburgh skyline as day becomes night, and we count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to New Year's as we arrive at Edinburgh Castle. So what do you think? Did I get the job? Well, thankfully the client liked it, and I did get the gig. And I want to play the finished broadcast sequence to you now. And there's a couple of slight differences from the storyboard to the finished video, and I just wonder if anyone can notice them.
Scotland, stand by as we count down to 2018 in 30 seconds. Twenty. 10.
Happy New Year, everyone. We've just sort of been through that, haven't we? It's a bit too soon. Happy Hogmanay, anyway. So that was the finished broadcast sequence, and there was a slight change in the final shoot. We had to get rid of this place, Finnick Glen. The landowner decided at the last minute he didn't want us filming there, so he swapped him out with this guy, Robbie Griffith, doing his amazing parkour tricks in Dundee and Glasgow. So there's always things that come up during a shoot, and the storyboard does adapt. But by and large, once you've agreed the storyboard, that's the creative stuff largely done. It becomes this Excel spreadsheet with the locations, the time you want to film them, the permissions, the talent, the props, everything you need. And the shoot, by and large, is just trying to tick off all these shots. And your biggest nemesis enemy on a shoot when filming landscapes or cityscapes is the weather. You want beautiful light to make the shot. So let's have a quick look at the opening shot here of this sequence. Now, the opening shot has to really shine. You really want to grab people's attention right from the get-go. And I'm filming here in December in Scotland. Not the best time of year to get reliable light. So what happens here? So we're hoping for some good sunlight here, just early in the morning. First morning sunlight to make this shot look magical. Forecast the day before is not looking so promising. And driving to the location, well, we've definitely got snow. I don't know if other people find this, but when I'm driving here to a location, I am hating myself. It's like absolute inner turmoil. Like, I've gotten up too late. I should have packed different kit. I should have done more preparation. It's real turmoil going on. And I arrive at the location, and it's this hillside with the castle in the distance, and the wind is howling, and there's one other guy standing about, I don't know, like 50 meters away from me, who's also crazy enough trying to get this shot. And there's just some times when the stars align and your camera's set up and you're filming, and there's nothing more or less to do than just appreciate the beauty of the shot and the moment. And you feel really privileged to do the work you do. So what I want to do now is have a look at a project I shot last summer, an amazing project using Z7, or Z7 I should probably say here. The video is called Tokyo Seamless. It's shot entirely using the Z7, and I just want to play a little clip now. Okay, so that was a clip from Tokyo Seamless, shot entirely on the Nikon Z7. So I want to take a look behind the scenes now, and a question I often get asked is, how do you do that? How do you do those shots, those transitions, those moves? And the answer to the question is drones. I mean, drones are this amazing new technology. They're the panacea of filmmaking, and you just have this lens in the sky, and you fly it around, and you just get amazing footage, and it's as simple as that, really. Okay, maybe not all the time. So drones are amazing, and you do get amazing drone shots and drone pilots, and indeed I do use drone footage in my work. But there are a number of restrictions when working in drones on how and where you can film with them. Working internationally, there's no such thing as a drone pilot, international drone pilot's license, so you're reliant on local operators you might not have worked with before. But the key thing about drones is they film reality. They are a wide-angle lens in the sky. And my work's not, I like to create my reality. I like to create worlds. So I like to reference that sense of freedom, but work out other techniques to create that. And I want to explore a few of them now. So we just saw this clip in reverse on Tokyo Seamless, where we're starting with our characters on the ground, very intimately, and we pull right back to a really big, wide scene. So the way I'm filming this is with 5 cameras, 4 of them simultaneously here on the rooftop. Here's a breakdown of what they're doing. So this was before the camera was released. It was a prototype camera, and we're in Tokyo, and they love cameras there. So I had to keep everything covered, and the only thing I had to hand was these little knitted bobble hats. So it was a very weird experience covering up top secret cameras with knitted bobble hats. A very strange one. But moving on, let's see what these cameras are doing here. So the first one is our master shot. It's the 14mm shot on the 14-24 lens. We then have 2 detail shots, giving us some more detail to zoom in. These are shot at 70mm on the new 24-70 f4 lens. We can zoom in there. And then finally, way in the distance, we have a 500mm shot, which gives us our detail of the talent and characters. So this gives us the ability to zoom all the way in and taking us to the ground, where here we switch to the final camera, which is me filming on the ground, real-time footage. Now, this is one of the coolest new features about the Z7, is its ability to focus in video focus, phase detection. I'm shooting here at 105mm lens, f1.4, a tiny depth of field, and using face detection, it nailed the focus, following the talent forwards and backwards and across the frame, which is a really cool new feature. So you can use all of your existing lenses and get great focus in video. The key thing about this sequence and how it was shot is if the client were to see what I'd shot, it wouldn't make any sense. They'd probably be having doubts as to why they employed me at this point. It's all about shooting for post-production and bringing those phases together to maximize them. I wanted to have a look at another clip now that demonstrates another technique.
Yasin, a goalkeeper will never forget.
Germany are champions of the world.
He's got it! Pelé has scored! And that is Brazil's 100th. England have done it!
You have to say that's magnificent.
OK, so that was the title sequence used by the BBC for the FIFA 2018 soccer. Need to remember that World Cup in Russia last year. It was played maybe 80, 90 times during the course of the tournament, so a high percentage of people in the UK watched that maybe multiple times. It was a pretty amazing commission to work on, one I'll definitely remember. But what I want to do is look at the sequence at the start of this, which uses a technique. It's another way of adding movement and dynamism to a scene, and essentially it's a moving time lapse. But the term you might have heard of is hyperlapse. So how do we shoot a hyperlapse? It's a really tedious process. We get a camera, we point it at an object of interest, we take a picture, we move a predetermined distance, and we repeat. And you need to repeat that about 100 times, 150 times to get a clip. If you're shooting with a longer lens, something 50mm or longer, it's very forgiving. You can do it handheld. It's like minus 20 degrees centigrade here. I don't know Fahrenheit, so I wanted to get this done quickly. A slower way is to do it with a wide-angle lens, and it's less forgiving. You then need a tripod, and you need to do live view and zoom right in and make sure you're getting the exact same detail every frame. And when you've done that, you'll end up with something like this. Pretty awful, huh? So this is where the client would definitely be having doubts if they saw what you have in camera. So we need to turn this into usable footage, and this is where the kind of synergy between shooting and post-production come together. So there's a few ways of going about this. One of them is called Warp Stabilizer. It's a feature of Adobe After Effects or Premiere, and it takes a while, but it runs away in an automated fashion, and it will turn that same footage into this, which is really impressive. The problem is it's not entirely reliable. So another approach we can use is called motion tracking. This takes a lot more time, but is absolutely reliable. And you actually go in 100%, and you tell the computer exactly the frame and the point of the frame you want to line up to. And you go through frame by frame until you end up with your finished sequence. And there we go. We've got something usable. So this is a really good example of how shooting and post-production come together to create the final sequence. And this leads nicely to the final stage, which is post-production. Now, I love post-production. It's really where the whole thing comes together. It's kind of akin, I don't know if people remember black and white printing days, where you took your photographic paper, a white sheet of paper, and you put it in the developer, and you wait. And over the course of, say, 2 minutes, this print appears in front of you. And it's a really magical thing. It's kind of ethereal, and it's the reason why a lot of photographers, I think, get hooked. It's the same as Polaroid. It's the same thing. And it's that process where you've had an idea, you've taken a photo, and you've spent the time processing it, and there the end results appear in front of you. Now, I have to say I have a lot of respect for photographers that believe the creative process finishes with the click of the shutter, but that's not how I approach it. I like to maximize every single part of the process. And the lovely thing about post-production is you can really go into detail, and it takes a lot of time, but you can get things exactly how you want them. To use the Tokyo video as an example, I mean, the first 5 seconds of that video were about 4 days' work in post-production to get it to the final edit. The thing with photographers particularly is it's quite a loaded language. I mean, post-production, the idea of like Photoshop it or photo manipulation, sort of inherently imply compromise, like you've screwed something up, you need to fix it, or that you're manipulating something somehow. So what I want to do is look at this image. A few years ago, I lived in Vietnam for a year, and right from arrival, this was an image that I had in mind. Like anyone that's been to Southeast Asia, Da Nang, Ho Chi Minh, Hanoi, has experienced this kind of throng of activity and life and bustle, and no doubt tried to cross it and get across. So it's a shot that I really wanted to capture. And to do it, you need 3 ingredients to come together. You need a really busy intersection at rush hour to get the traffic. You need great light. I mean, there's lovely shadows in this, and if this was shot in like midday, harsh shadows, or in a cloudy day, for instance, it would look very flat. So you want the golden hour to give it long shadows and give it some depth. The final thing we need is a high vantage point. I mean, I'm really high up on top of a building here. This is a 160 mil shot, and I'm looking right down. And you need those 3 things to come together. And they didn't. I lived there a year, and I couldn't find a location where everything happened. Chiefly, rush hour does not coincide with the best light in Vietnam. It's near the equator. So what do? So I have a saying that's, when you're lying, stick as close to the truth as possible, and it's kind of a mantra I bring to post-production. So this isn't a revolutionary technique, but in this instance, we comp it. We take lots of images, we put them together, and we get our final shot. Now, my question here for you is, does knowing this detract from the outcome in your mind? I mean, is this image lesser for it? Because the funny thing is, to me, this image means a lot more than if I had been on a rooftop and taken a picture. This was the culmination of a year's work, not solidly, but finding the location, taking the picture, employing a technique, and then spending a lot of time in post-production bringing the image about. My job and my responsibility to myself and to my clients is to maximize the image, and that involves maximizing every stage of the process, the planning, the shooting, and the post-production. And that's what Flowmotion is all about, bringing all these stages together to really push the envelope and be as creative as you possibly can. So how did I get here? How did I find my way to this singular style? I have a degree in photography, and I left college thinking I wanted to be a fine art and architectural photographer. That seemed like quite a sensible sort of route, a relatively safe route. But I was always fascinated by movement. And I was fascinated by the way that time controls a scene, but the camera can control time, and it can reveal this incredible world in flux. So at high school, I found myself shooting still life plates in black and white and going back a few weeks later and shooting them again, just to get that sense of movement. So increasingly, I found myself with a photographer's eye in training, but with a filmmaker's mentality, looking at movement. Then I watched this film. It's a super trendy movie, 1960s movie. It's great, and it's filmed in swinging London. And there's a scene in it where our protagonist goes to a park, and he's photographing just scenes, taking pictures. And he inadvertently takes a picture of a woman, and she comes up and challenges him, "Why are you taking my picture?" He doesn't think anything more of it, and he goes back to his darkroom, and he's printing the scene. And then he realizes there's something going on in it. So he enlarges by printing right to the floor with a bit of photographic paper. He blows it up, and he realizes he's photographed a murder. And I love that idea. It's kind of like that cliched sci-fi thing where it's like enhance, where they go right into somebody's glasses, the reflection, and see a detail. And it's so much like that when you're standing on a rooftop in a busy, bustling city. This is Da Nang, like my first love. There's an amazing wide scene in front of you. Yes, that's captivating. But that's not what the eye does. We want to explore the scene. We want to look around. We want to see the details. We want to check out all the stories that are taking place. And I think that's where my style sort of started. It was this desire to, as you would if you were there on this rooftop, I wanted to take the audience there and give them the ability to explore and roam around. And then why not take it further? Why not we can join the characters on the ground and follow them to their location, follow them to where they're going. So you could say it was in Da Nang that I found my style. So I want to end really where I began. I'd spent a year living and filming in Vietnam. I didn't put anything online. I was just learning what I wanted to do and maximizing everything, getting as good as it as I could before I shared it. But the year finished, I put my first video online, and within 24 hours of the video's launch, it received a staggering but then something cool happened. So I hope that today, by sharing my experiences, I've maybe stirred some thoughts and feelings that can help you pursue your own ideas, and maybe the story of how you found your style. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr.